Are you willing to accept Christ's invitation to know Him more intimately, love Him more intensely, and follow Him more closely, and then go out into the world and live His good news? If you say yes, then you could be the 13th apostle. Join Dan Duddy and Tom Caffrey, the odd couple of Catholic radio, as they ride the radio waves 2 by 2 to share the goodness, beauty, and truth of Jesus Christ and His church. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the 13th apostle.
So, do you have a favorite passage from the first 5? Do you? I don't know. I like them all.
You don't say.
I suppose I love the beginning. I love how God simply spoke and the world came into being. Yes. As David wrote, by the word of the Lord, the heavens were made. You know, the Greeks use word to describe divine reason, what gives the world form and meaning. I like that. And it is a favorite memory.
In the beginning was the Word. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the 13th Apostle, where we explore the good, the beautiful, the true, and the overwhelming of the Catholic faith and the Catholic Church. This is Tom Caffrey with my partner, Dan Duddy. How you, Dan?
Hey, Tom. How are you?
All right. Always
Good.
Moved by that. Of course, that was from the Chosen, Jesus talking with the beloved disciple, presumably John. Oh, so we'll talk about the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Talk about Genesis. You said you were doing something with Genesis at school with your students.
Yeah, I have a freshman theology class. We've just started Genesis. We did the origins and the formation of the church firstly, and then we moved on. We're just touched upon. We're going to go back to the 5 proofs of the existence of God. But we hit Genesis pretty hard earlier, late last week, and then I just really decided to bring it back much more, strongly this week. And so today we kind of resurrected Genesis, no pun intended there, and love how it brings us over to, not to jump the gun here, but brings us over to John 1. Where we have the Word in Genesis, where we have creation said to be created by God, and how it moves over to the Word in John 1. But once again, I'm jumping the gun. But yeah, we're studying it. The kids are loving it, and they're writing some really cool reflections on it.
Can you think of one?
Yeah, I have one, actually. Let me just see if I can pull this down real quick. I had the kids choose 5 verses from Genesis 1 through 3 that struck them in some way, and then to write a reflection on it. I don't have the actual verse number on here, but this one goes like this. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loin coverings. And the girl wrote, this verse shows that when Adam and Eve realized they weren't wearing clothes after disobeying God, but they felt ashamed and tried to cover themselves with leaves. This verse reminds me that sin makes me feel exposed and separated from God, leading me to hide my mistakes instead of facing my mistakes and essentially facing the forgiveness and mercy that comes from God. It's pretty cool, fundamental, true.
That's nice.
Yeah,
nice for somebody who's probably 13 years old.
Yeah, 13, maybe young 14.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's. I like
good,
that.
Right?
Yeah,
yeah,
I like
it's
that.
Inspiring.
Feeling exposed. Wow. Well, yeah, I think you have gosh, there's so much in Genesis, and we're talking beforehand, as always, in talking about really the 2 creation stories that are in Genesis, which can throw some people off. There's a few things in Genesis Like in the first chapter, verse 26, then God said, let us make human beings in our image, after our likeness. What's that our? What's that us?
What is that hour when it's coming from? That God said that. Let us make man in our image.
Yeah, let us make.
Yeah. According to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the sky. But we'll stop there because what does it mean? Let us.
Yeah.
Us?
So I know some people, some scholars have referred to that as first evidence of the Trinity, but others, including our bishops and certainly one part of the magisterium of the church, describes that as God, so the creator, but presiding. It's like almost like the priest presiding at Mass. He's presiding over a group of heavenly creatures, and it's almost like his council, and about having a discussion about what's going on Earth. When it's time for we've created the animals, we've created every aspect of certainly Earth, presumably the cosmos. We have to be careful of the sin of pride to saying, okay, well, God saved the best for last. But anyway, God, how many times we see in hymns, in prayers, Most High. Mm-hmm. So Most High over what? And it's obviously it would be Most High over human beings, but in this context, it's got to be Most High over heavenly host, let's say. And so I think for some people, and when I first read that many years ago, obviously in adulthood, I read it, I thought, oh, wait, I'm a little disturbed about this. What does this mean? Anyway, that's no reason to be disturbed.
Yeah. What's interesting is it's all God solo. That's 126. So there's 25 verses before that, and it's about his creation, and it's all God said. God said, "Let there be." Boom, 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 and then all of a sudden, when it comes to man, it's us in our image, and then that's verse 26, and 27 he goes solo again. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. It's very. Tom, I confess, I did not see that. I didn't see it, and here we are on the microphone, and very, very, very interesting. I bet most of our audience didn't know either.
And the first part of in terms of the two creation stories, there's nothing to be alarmed about that, as I was when I first learned it many years ago. But the one is, first of all, this is not scientific history, which, I don't know. One of the first things I said, it wasn't my first course. It was my second course in the theology program, taught by the chair of the department, the guy who would become my mentor and beloved friend, and who I had for just about every course in that program. And I remember saying to him in the beginning of the first class of this course, and saying, all right, when did divine revelation begin? And he had what I would soon learn was his classic response, especially to me, which was to get this big grin on his face and to start laughing. And partly because, he saw my passion, enthusiasm, and my, the intensity. He said, something like, you're looking for that date on the calendar. And, I eventually learned, I learned on that class that this is not, looking at Genesis, like much of the Bible, it's not a history textbook. And it's not a scientific textbook. It's a textbook of truths, and the arc from Genesis to Revelation is salvation history. And as Pope Benedict used to say and wrote, and our church teaches this, that the Bible should be read from within the heart of the church, with the understanding that it comes to us through the church and the teaching office of the magisterium. So it's the first part, the first creation story is really about, it's the creation of the world, it's the creation of the cosmos, the heavens. And then...
But Tom, don't you see like a poetry in the science there?
Well, I don't see science at all. It's poetry. It's myth.
But the order, the making time, providing light. I mean, we here in 2025 can definitely apply the science that we've come to learn about the cosmos, about the earth, and about the incredible, miraculous order of things. We can apply a science that we know now back to the wonder and the beauty of Genesis in creation. Can we not?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the heavens, so we've explored the moon and Mars. With the skills that God gave us with our brain, to explore that. I'm just saying for people to look at Genesis as the scientific, materialistic origin of where we say, yes, this happened on this particular date, and okay, well, what year was it, and is the Earth billions of years old?
Yeah, I get you on that. Right? Yeah, it's much more the message being that it reminds us, and one of my students actually wrote this, reminds us that God is someone of order and design, orchestrating everything with purpose for us and in our own lives. So that's what she got from it. Okay, got you. That's pretty cool.
And it's order. I like, that's exactly it. Now the first one is transcendence. This is the way to think of the two creation stories. The first one is the transcendence of God. The second one is the immanence of God, and being in the garden and having this relationship with the man and the woman. And so there's, I would say in a nutshell, there's the difference between, they're complementary, the creation stories. Again, first one transcendence, the second one immanence. God's out there, the whole cosmos, and then the second one is much more of man and woman.
Well, why do we have a breakup? So God created man in his image, right? And he created them male and female, and then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and rule over the fish and the sea and that. And then we have a breakup, and then we go down to the account of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day that when God tells us that we come from dust out of the ground.
That's the immanence. That's the intimacy.
That's the immanence. Explain that to me, the immanency.
Well, everything is in the first creation story in Genesis 1. It's much more, again, of the cosmos. It's much more of everything around us, but not so much us. And then if you're looking at, we could say somewhat of, we start getting into, with the second chapter, more of nations. But real quickly, we get into, eventually we get into nation. And that's where it becomes even more intimate, because then you start getting into the formation of the chosen people. Mm-hmm. It's not Israel yet, but that's what it's really leading to.
That's what we're heading to, yes.
But it's interesting. Why do you think there was a serpent in the garden? This is not a trick question. I want to know if you've thought about this. If this is the Garden of Eden, this is, people think of this, I did for the longest time, this is perfection. Perfection is this quote unquote heaven on earth. So why would there be a serpent?
Well, why? Okay, let's just talk about the serpent not being, Satan, an evil force, the tempter, for a minute. You work a garden. What is the value of a serpent in a garden?
Well, I've had, fortunately, only small serpents in my gardens.
Yeah.
But they'll eat some small rodents.
That's a good thing, right?
Well, not for the rodents, but it's a it's a good thing for the snake. And yeah, although I did have a snake. One of the snakes got in my house, though.
Okay.
That's I definitely didn't like the snake, and I did end up doing something like it's shown in the Passion of the Christ with the snake in its head. But first, my cat Luna got to it, and
are you serious?
Oh yeah.
I didn't think Luna had it in her.
Oh well, I know that you're constantly disrespecting her.
So I think you. Well, wait a minute.
She's our mascot, and
were you standing on a chair?
By the way, you know that she's God's creature, right? And you continue to diss her.
Okay, so
but
you're also God's creature. You're a man, and you were standing on a chair.
Well, no, the table actually.
On the table, screaming.
Well, that was a mouse too. I was thinking of Genesis when I was looking at these two creatures.
Of course you were. Yeah, that's what you were thinking about.
I got the grinding wheel out of the garage and started sharpening Luna's claws. Yeah. So, but why? This is. Why is there a tree of knowledge of good and evil? I mean, these are legitimate questions, and I always say, I've said this so many times. I've said this. I ask these questions. The motivation for me asking these questions is because I'm around many, many people who think this is a bunch of baloney, and that they ask these questions and they don't get good answers from people, from believers, who, when they ask things like, okay, well, what's the reason for there being a tree that already is God tempting humanity? Is this the first temptation that, okay, it's there, and he blessed the man and woman with eyes to see, and they see that luscious fruit, plump fruit that's hanging, from the branches of that tree. And it's the tree of knowledge and the knowledge of good and evil. Well, do you learn one off the other? I mean, how would they know what evil is? They probably wouldn't know what good is, because we know things off the opposite.
Mm.
So the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, okay, so it's knowledge, and then it's being able to distinguish between good and evil. Well, how do they know what evil is?
Well, let's go a little bit deeper, maybe because we are born in his image and likeness. And if we back up a couple of verses, in our image and likeness, where he invites whatever the crew is, the team that's going to play a part in creating a man, that we have it born into us, the knowledge of good and evil. I think to a large degree, by way of our conscience and our inner being, we have an innate ability to know the difference between good and bad. And you're saying, how could they know? Why? Because they were the first on earth?
Well, yeah, they would have no experience of evil. It's not like they touched something in a stove that was hot. Okay, well, that's not good. Or they did something they shouldn't have done. Adam did something to Eve that he shouldn't have done, and Eve got mad or something like that. Okay, well, now I know that's not good because I don't like what she's saying or doing. I don't like what she looks like. I don't even know what the word mad is. All this stuff. So you say, okay, well, God's saying you can have everything except that one. Well, you do that. Say that to your children when they're young. Okay, you can have all this stuff. You see that thing over there? Oh, see that piece of chocolate? Nice and creamy.
I think that's evil on their part, though.
No, I'm not saying that's evil. No, I'm saying that's a temptation for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's like it would be a temptation for that child if you say 10 things on that table you can eat, but this one thing you can't eat, and it's something that it obviously is beautiful. These are very interesting questions to consider. And, it's so easy to just punt the ball, so to speak, to use the language with which you are most familiar. If you think if you just, okay, well, I'm in a Catholic world, I'm in a believing world, and so I don't have to deal with people. But I don't see how in this day and age, with people walking away or never even entering a faith system, that we can just go the way we've always gone in terms of helping people to understand. Do we understand our faith?
Mm-hmm.
You know, do we read these things and say, okay, well, he's a good God, but this is the same God who allowed Satan to play with Job.
Mm-hmm. Well, the fundamental launch pad, and you know I'm a football coach, so I use the word fundamentals a lot, into, I think, the deepest level and the most effective and productive level of humility is the knowledge, the living mantra, that we have nothing to do with the fact that we exist. And, you know, as a newborn baby, I think that we look around the room and we think everything was born with us the day we were born. And the same could actually hold true with a 14-year-old. Until we acknowledge the fact that we're an only child of God and that we have nothing to do with the fact that we exist and we live our life that way, then we'll never be the purposeful people that we're supposed to be. So back to the fundamental truths, I told our students today, if you're going to put one thing on your wall or on your locker, let it be, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's a really good start. And you come after that, but you have nothing to do with your very being. It's really powerful. And what comes from that is a knowledge of their essentiality and the consequentiality of their will, the decisions that are sprung from their wills. So there's a very, very powerful truth there that's got to be injected into all of us every day, I think. Otherwise, we become, no offense, Luna, but we all become fat cats.
She's not offended because she's not fat.
Well, in your opinion, she's not
She's
fat.
trim. Well, you're really hard on her. Remember, she's God's creature.
She's
oh
a
my
fat
gosh,
creature.
you got a snake. You need a serpent to tighten you up.
Well, I'm going to have bad dreams about serpents tonight, but I'll call you.
So it says, you know, don't eat it or you'll die. Well,
what kind of death is that?
They didn't eat it and they didn't die.
So we're talking about a different kind of death, right?
Well,
we're talking about sin.
So the death of what? I mean, this is, are we talking, okay, here's the first resurrection? What are you talking about? You know, so, but
930 years of toiling soil, the toil of the tilling of the soil for 930 years. Adam, poor Adam. Talk about a sanctification. We have it easy. We have reconciliation. We can go have a good confession because of the New Testament, because of Christ.
Well, I mean, God never severs the covenant. And it's one covenant after another broken by humanity. But he always restores it. So it makes sure that relationship is never ruptured where it's beyond repair in terms of humanity as a whole.
Right. He is perfect in love, and in love he will never, ever, he'll never leave us behind. He'll never push us aside. Always there for us.
You know, it's if God's omniscient, why is he asking, where are you?
Because he wants us to speak up and say it. He knows all, yes. But he's done it all through the Bible and the New Testament. Who do you say I am? You know, who is that that touched my robe?
Yeah.
He wants us to proclaim these things, because when we proclaim them, then they become tattooed into our soul. And then we walk the walk. And
somehow Adam knows fear. And then they realize they're naked. Okay, well, how, you know, God says, how do you know you're naked? All this, you just see this unfolding of this relationship and a damaged relationship. But before we wrap up, it's important to emphasize that word relationship, because Genesis really is a book of relationships. It's a relationship with God and creation, with God and humanity, humanity with God, humanity with creation, humanity with each other. And that you see that unfolding throughout Genesis. And you know, bad things happen. Promises are made, not prophecies, but promises are made. about the difficulties, you said, the toiling of the earth, and whatnot, pain and childbearing and whatnot. But just think of, to fast forward a bit beyond this part to Cain and Abel. I mean, God didn't abandon Cain, despite the terrible thing that Cain did to his brother.
Right.
That's throughout sacred scripture. I mean, David.
My goodness. Goodness, what a story. Yeah.
Real quickly, the last thing I'll say, we really got to wrap it up, but when I was doing some research today, and I remembered that I heard one scholar doubt the existence of David, and I said, no, I remember there was an archaeological finding, maybe 75, 80 years ago, and I'm going to do with you right now what that archaeological discovery was. Tell Dan.
What? Tell Dan?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
That's the name of the discovery. It's Tell Dan, and that was the discovery of a stone.
Oh wow!
With describing David. Now,
okay.
Yeah, and now there was some question about that didn't get into specifics about the kings at the time that David was fighting, but anyway. We know. So I just came upon. I thought it was great. I'm going to tell Dan. Tell Dan. It's kind of like who's on first. Well, no.
Yeah. Well, I love it.
Who's on first? That's right. Well, I'm going to tell Dan. Tell Dan what? I'm going to tell Dan.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
I know.
Jump into that.
Pretty neat stuff.
Yeah,
so
cool.
Yep. So Genesis is a book of relationships, and they're fraught at times, and this is the story of humanity, mainly our relationship with God and His creation, and then the fall, and our relationship with each other. Yeah. First, it's a broken relationship with God, then it's broken relationships with each other.
Yeah. What else is new, right? We've got all this chronology back to Genesis, and here we are living the exact same life. God is in the present. Here we are. Yep.
All right, brother. What's coming up next, Danny?
Stay tuned, folks, for the Angelus and your prayer intentions with Peter and Jemmy.
WQPHradio.org. Tell a friend. Make new friends so you can tell them. God bless you, Danny.
God bless you, Tommy. God bless you all.
Thank you for listening to the 13th Apostle with Dan Duddy and Tom Caffrey. For more information on Dan, visit his website at www.danduddy.com or email dcduddy@gmail.com. Tom's website is faithpilgrims.com or email trcaffrey@faithpilgrims.com. How about you? Will you be the 13th Apostle?